Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel, and today, the Donner L1. And if you think that's interesting, please join me in this video. Here we go. The Donner L1 arrived here in two parcels, one containing the detachable keyboard and the other one a power plug, USB cables, printed manuals and the synth itself. The 32 mini-keys velocity-sensitive keyboard action is good, but not great. It has two precise pitch bend and mod ribbons on the left side, an octave and hold and shift buttons. The shift button is used for accessing the functions on the keyboard, which are printed onto the enclosure. There's also a tiny screen showing information on your current setup. I quite like the green lights showing the position of the mod ribbons. On the L1's back, you'll find the power switch, power plug, USB-C for MIDI, TRS MIDI in and out plugs, audio in and out, and the sustain pedal connector. On the front, you'll find the magnetic custom connector for the keyboard. The synth's user interface is nearly one element for one function. You'll find here a set of faders, knobs and four-way switches and buttons for the sequencer. There's also a screen informing you on the few menu-driven functions like song selection, sequence selection, swing value and more. I really like the faders. They show quite some resistance when moving them slowly, but they move quickly if you push them harder. This allows for precise control. Overall, this is a very good user interface and the synth never fails to signal what's going on. The synth also has CV ports, so you could use it in modular setups. But enough of the talking. Let's hear some sounds. If you want more in-depth reviews, I've linked BoBeats and loopop's video in this video's description. So what sounds do I expect from a monophonic synth? Well, maybe a punchy bass, a nice lead and a sparkly arpeggiator. And here's a bass sound and it's quite punchy, using the sub-oscillator and all three waveforms at once, and some pulse width modulation controlled by the LFO. As usual in analog synthesizers, the bass becomes considerably less punchy when using resonance on the filter. Here's a brassy lead sound with a bit of noise, soft attack and release and a bit of LFO-controlled pitch, amplitude and filter modulation. Also, tweaking the sounds while playing is no problem with these faders. The arpeggiator on the L1 is quite capable. Of course, you can set up the usual up and down and random directions and octave ranges, but it's also possible to enter your own rhythms using the 16-step sequencer buttons. Swing and accent notes are here as well. Okay, I guess you've guessed it already. Let's hear all of this together. This is nice, but let's add some reverb and compressors. Yes, my timing is awful, but still, that didn't sound too bad, right? Here's another example. I used the sequencer on the bass sound here. The sequencer is 64 steps, and I use step recording, entering notes and rests and holds. On the lead sound I used the noise LFO on the filter and modulated this live using the LFO depth slider and LFO speed knob. All sounds are from the L1. I used Air Ether and Air Delay Pro for the pad and lead sounds. That are reverb plugins, by the way. Conclusion. The L1 is another "hey, that's quite good" synthesizer from Donner. As usual with this company, they took the original idea, in this case the Roland SH101, and added some goodies. The bone-dry analog sounds come to life in a DAW or with a pedal board. If you were looking for a classic mono-synthesizer remake with a modern user interface, this might be for you. If only it was a polysynth. Maybe next time, Donner. Yeah, and that's it for today. The Donner L1. And at that price point, it's really hard to argue with anything here. So the only thing I can really say here is it would have been nice if this was a polyphonic synthesizer. It would have been nice if they'd included one or two effects. But then again, it is what it is. And as such, this is a good sounding monophonic synthesizer with a reasonable build quality. And I certainly won't complain about this detachable MIDI keyboard, which can be used with other setups. As always, thanks for watching. If you thought this was a good YouTube video, please do the YouTube thing. You can also support me on Patreon or become a channel member, but none of that is really mandatory. Bye bye!